Yeah, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this special webinar on sustainability. As you can all see, the subject is sustainability, what, when, and how. Before we start with the subject, let me introduce you to 13th Asian Metallurgy in brief and Steel and Metal Expo. As many of you may be aware, we have started this event on ground in 1996. Until COVID, we were running in the ground only at BAC, that is Bombay Exhibition Center, Goregaon, Mumbai. And it was coupled with the conferences also. But after COVID, we shifted all our products, including our two magazines, Steelworld and Metalworld, and our all events on digital platform. So after 2021, we started conducting all our conferences and also the exhibition on digital platform. So the exhibition is now known as Steel and Metal Expo, and we continued with the same banner as Asian Metallurgy. So this is the 13th edition of Asian Metallurgy. Earlier, it used to be conducted in every 2 years, but now after COVID, we started conducting it every year. So this is how it is. So, and as a part of Asian Metallurgy, there are two parts. In fact, one is the digital exhibition, which you can visit on steelandmetalexpo.com. And the other part is the different webinars which we conduct alongside this exhibition. So this is the first webinar. We had a very interesting inauguration session on 9th. And now this is the first webinar on sustainability on steel and metals industry. Sustainability, what, when, and how. We have very distinguished panel of experts for to discuss the subject. And let me introduce these experts to you. First, let me welcome Mr. N. Venkata Ramani, very senior person. Mr. Ramani is a steel plant professional with nearly 60 years experience. It covers steel plant operations and quality control, steel plant design and project implementation, technology assessment, and adaptations to Indian environment and overall steel industry development. Initial 7 years from 63 to 70, where he was with HSL, that is Hindustan Steel Limited, Steels Limited, now which is afterwards known as SEL, in special steels production using state-of-the-art technologies. Then state-of-the-art technologies. Then 24 years, 71 to 60, 95, he was in Dastur and globally known Indian consulting engineers for steel industry in various capacities. Finally, he superannuated at Joint Managing Director. 25 years as CMD in Optimal Steel Plant Design, a company founded by him in 1995. Intimate association with various projects in steel industry in India and abroad, covering project selection, technology assessments, master planning, design and engineering, and project execution. Unique distinction of having led the design and engineering and project management team in MN Dastur as principal consultant to Vizag steel plant from groundbreaking to commissioning. The largest steel project in Greenfield then, over rupees 8,000 crores with state-of-the-art technologies, world top-class vendors and contractors, and a team of over 2,500 designers, engineers, and managers. Having been associated with more than 200 assignments, including projects and strategic studies and evaluations of Rourkela Steel Plant, CRGO, Salem Steel Plant, Vizag Steel Plants, Tata Steel, Ispat Industries, and other projects in steel industry in India, public as well as private sector. Very warm welcome to Mr. Ramani, such a veteran personality in steel industry. And thank you very much for sparing your time, sir. Then we have,
Thank you very much.
then we have Mr. Pankaj Jain. Mr. Jain also has a very vast experience in steel industry. In fact, yeah, let me read out. He has also got extensive experience in steel industry and 32 plus years of experience in special steels, corporate leadership, entrepreneurship, and personal development. Led teams and strategies for top companies, overseeing multi-million dollar sales and marketing divisions. Co-founded Blue Ocean Steels, one of the India's largest special steel aggregators. Holds PhD in sustainability with focus on on socially responsible leadership. He has recently done his PhD also in sustainability. That's great, Mr. Pankaj. conducted over
Yeah, thank you.
260 workshops and trained more than 10,000 professionals across the various industries, delivered 150 keynote speeches at national and international forums, sharing insights of leadership, innovation, and growth, expert in sales and business strategy, driving 50% plus CAGR growth of BOS, author of Lee Chelang, a motivational book empowering professionals to take bold leaps of faith and step out of their comfort zones. A journey of resilience from small town of in Jharkhand to becoming a recognized thought leader in India's entrepreneur landscape. Very well, Dr. Pankaj. Uh, of course, from where in Jharkhand, sir?
There is a place called Hazaribagh
Yeah,
near
of
to
course I know.
Ranchi.
I am from Jharkhand.
Uh,
I studied
oh,
in NIT Jamshedpur.
great,
That's
great. You
how
are
I
from
know.
Jamshedpur. Oh,
And I
yes,
forgot to
yes, yes.
mention one
So,
thing about
so I'm
Mr.
from.
Ramani is that Mr. Ramani has recently written a book on sustainability. So that is with respect to the Indian context. So that is another
Yeah,
reason why Mr. Ramani is here. And the third expert which we have is Mr. Rajeev Sinha. Let me introduce Mr. Rajeev. He has also got very elaborate experience in the industry. Mr. Rajiv is an engineer from BITS and MBA from MDI as is a dynamic modern pro, prolific business expert with extensive and expansive expertise in sustainability and carbon solutions, business transformations and development matters. He is the co-founder of and CEO of OnlyGood, a world-class sustainability solution which has received accolades from Maruti, DICB, Daimler, and IIT MIC. He consults on risks and opportunities in the industry focused on automotive, forging, metals, and manufacturing. He is the founding member of three successful for-profit and two non-profit organizations, transformed over 30 national and international business professional footprint and in four continents. Very warm welcome, Mr. Rajiv, and thank you very much for sparing your time. So, we have very eminent expert panel, as you can see, and the my first question to this panel would be, what do you understand by sustainability, particularly in the context of the iron and steel industry and specifically for India? Let me first go to Mr. Ramani. Mr. Ramani, what are your initial thoughts on sustainability, specifically to iron and steel industry in the context of in the Indian context, I mean. Please,
You see,
Mr. Ramani, please.
sustainability is a sort of a much used word today, as it was commonly accepted that it's development and growth in the present
Yeah.
without compromising the future. But what has happened is globally, with the massive economic development which has taken place and continues to take place, the impacts on resources, environment, climate, social well-being, this simplistic definition is not valid anymore.
Hmm.
A more appropriate definition today would be
Hmm.
sustainability is development and growth in the present, recognizing adverse impacts of the past, ensuring their mitigation, and adopting solutions focused on majority population, human and environmental well-being without compromising the future. Now, considering this, the world steel essentially has laid down the sustainability goals for the steel industry under three clear heads. One is the environmental sustainability, the other is the social sustainability, and the third is the economic sustainability. So that is essentially the sort of a spirit of sustainability when we talk about steel industry in particular and in general for everyone. As far as steel industry is concerned, the realities in terms of its contribution to sort of emissions is a bit more exaggerated than what it actually is in the context. And that is the contribution of emissions from steel, if you see, globally, it's about 7 to 8%. And in Indian context, if you see, it's in the range of about 12%. So it's not the biggest emitter in the world. But the whole dialogue that goes on is as if it's the steel industry which is sort of leading the pack as far as emissions are concerned. But however, it still is an important player in the emission bracket because the fact that you have huge volumes of steel produced. For example, if you see last year's production of the global steel is about 2 billion tons and still growing. So essentially, from that perspective, sustainability is a rather important goal for the steel industry, and compliance with it on a sort of a regulated basis is a desired objective. Now, if you take the Indian context, actually, for that matter, the entire industry itself, if you see, the sustainability is essentially determined by decarbonization. As you know, coal is essentially the heart of steel making, particularly in the integrated steel plants. So as a result of which, both the energy as well as the reductant is provided by coal. So on account of which, the carbon emissions from steel production are quite high. For example, if you take the BF-BOF route, the best practices bring it to about 1.6 tons per ton of steel, CO2, and in sort of inefficient surroundings, you see that it goes even up to 2.6, 2.7, or even 3. So that is the basic point. And the other part is that power which we use is also coal-based because the power where we buy, or for that matter, some of the power plants itself are designed with coal as the power. So the issues which actually we are aiming at from a stainless steel industry perspective is, one is the conservation of finite resources. Because, for example, if you take iron ore, it's a finite resource. As far as India is concerned, the strength will go down as we pass on. I take the other part is the environmental commitments which we have made to the world regarding the climate control and all that. So that would mean that we must have a proper approach to the sustainability in steel industry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ramani. Uh, Mr. Pankaj, what do you think is the what it means for sustainability in the industry, our industry?
See, I'll tell you like this,
I believe that it is not only carbon reduction, it is much more than that. Sustainability, of course, is a very wide term and it covers
mm,
risk management also. It covers, then if once you say risk management, risk, it covers types of risks. So, all that will come under sustainability, is it not, Mr. Pankaj? What do you think?
yeah, it will. When you take a broader perspective, definitely it will. But let me just, give my thoughts on the whole subject.
Please, please.
See, I tell you, I have spent around 32 years in the industry and all throughout in steel only. Okay. There was an ad of Tata Steel that, there is a little bit of steel in
That was sale advertisement. Little bit of
sale
sale.
advertisement, sorry,
Sale in everybody's
in
life.
in everybody's life. So if you see all across, whether we the pens that we use or the mobiles or the
Hmm.
watches and the trains, the guns, the cars, the bridges,
Hmm.
practically everywhere steel is used. So there is no denial to the fact that steel is the kind of a backbone to the industry, and it will continue to remain the backbone of the industry, irrespective of the application areas, even from, as I told you, from a needle to a aeroplane or whatever you think in between. And for the generations to come, it is going to be the backbone of the industry. So there is no denial of the fact. But what happens is that, when we think about steel, people are generally thinking of, smoke coming out of the factories and then pollutions and so many other things. So that's the general feeling, which quite a large number of people have about steel. And as Ramani Saab was also telling that, this is a kind of a industry which is said that, world over the approximately 7 to 8%, what you said, 7 to 8% of
Mm-hmm.
the global emissions are happening because of steel. And if you talk about India, it's roughly around 12%. So I feel it's not always like that. Yes, there are some plants which are having smoke and so many things are being talked about it. But I feel that the good part is that steel industry as such, if you see the history of the steel industry, we have always evolved. There was a time, let's say 100 years back, when the technology was different. It was a open hearth. Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, Ramani Saab. It was an open
Right.
hearth, which was more polluting than this. Then blast furnace came, electric arc furnace came, all those concepts came. But I go back to the same topic that steel is going to remain the backbone. And what I mean from sustainability is that when when we envision our either our or somebody else's grandchildren and their children and grandchildren walking or moving or playing, they should have an environment which is completely pollution free. They should be able to live. They should
Right.
be not be playing with masks on. They should be, they should have a good environment in which they can breathe. That is, in my terms, is sustainability. And that becomes the responsibility of not just the steel industry, but all the industries which pollute. And
Yeah.
similarly, when we talk about, so this was about the climate. So similarly, when we talk about the other environmental damages which is happening, when we keep hearing that, even in places like Pune, sometimes we see flooding, which was never heard of. And then even in Rajasthan, and also we see flooding, and also there are a lot of implications from the melting of the ices, the temperatures going up because I think the gases are not going able to go out of the atmosphere. So there is a kind of the result is that we are seeing a lot of climate changes. Definitely nobody wants that. Definitely nobody wants that. But the point is that both government and the private sector and even individuals like us have all to play our role to do something so that the next generation, and it this definitely include the the compliances and the risks which we are talking about. So but at a holistic level, we all have to not just always look at other people, that what is some other organization, let's
Right.
say Rajiv's organization is into certification, so what is he doing, what is the government doing? Actually, the time has come when all of us need to think of what we personally, plus the organization where we are attached to, or whether we are working or whether we are owning, that's a different part. And even the government. So we all have to, with good intent, we have to do things that we are able to leave for the next generation a
Sure.
situation where they are able to, if not better, at least have the same pleasures which we had. In my terms, that is sustainability, and that is what I would like to do, and that is what I would like that whatever contributions I can make from my side, from my team side, from the company's side, and even being a good national, from being from Indian, being an Indian, we should do that. That is sustainability in my words, and we all should do everything which we can do to make it happen. So that is my whole view on the steel industry and sustainability and what requires to be done. So, I think I could answer your question, and if you have
Very
something
Yeah,
more,
yeah,
then
of course,
very
of
good.
course.
I
Very
can
good.
Thanks
definitely
for your
continue.
opening remarks. And now I move on to Mr. Rajiv. Rajiv ji, आपको what are your opening comments on the subject?
I will put a slightly different point of view on whatever has been said. So, Mr. Ramani very beautifully worded the whole thing on the finite resources, and we should understand that everything has its limitations. So, we need to work with the same resource, and the earth has to run for a very long period of time. So, we need to understand how to harness it in the right way. Similarly, Dr. Pankaj explained about the personal linkage and how we are talking about the future of our grandchildren's where when they come. the earth should be a livable place. Okay. So having said all of these and having understood all of these points, let me give you a very brief understanding and how businesses can actually look into this. While we talk about goodness, it should also mean economic activity and benefit for everybody. So first, the definition part, sustainability in the steel industry is essential for my mitigation its environmental impact while ensuring economic growth and social equity.
Correct.
So this is one of the primary factor. Steel industry is the backbone of any infrastructure development. As the world will grow, this demand will continuously increase till the time we find some alternate source or till the time we exhaust this particular option. So we need to be very cognizant that as more steel production happens, we have to use the energy efficiently, increasing recycling efforts, utilizing renewable sources, and make the steel sector more of a sustainable future. Now, having used the word sustainable, this is also a misnomer, you can understand. It's one of the most widely used word right now, and everybody keeps on dropping sustainability at the drop of a hat. But sustainability needs to be understood first. In simple layman terms, what sustainability means is whatever we are consuming, we should replenish it back. Whatever we are using, it should be done in a way where the circularity is maintained and a minimal impact on environment is done. In the best case scenario, impact is zero, and we continue to use and harness our environment. Now, let me put it on the steel industry. As we know, India is slowly becoming the second largest steel producer. And the per capita consumption in India is very low. It's around 81 tons per person, whereas the world average could be close to 300. At the same time, the energy intensity in India is very high. It's close to 2.7 or 3 because of the method of production, while the global average or the European Union could be ranging in the range of 1.7 to 2. So what it effectively means is the steel being produced in India becomes less competitive when we go to the global market. So it's very important to understand if we are going to expand and grow, if the India per capita income or the steel consumption is going to grow, then we have to understand that the production process has to improve drastically. And whoever takes lead in this, whoever takes lead in creation of more green steel, more circularity, reducing emissions, building a brand, creating awareness, will be the eventual winner. Winner in terms of branding and sales and revenue, at the same time, winner in terms of reducing its cost, improving its efficiency, and building a brand which would be long lasting and for whatever you can say, perpetuality. So these are my thoughts, which is important. I have been in this sustainability field for very long. And while we try to add our emotional angle and try to build things, I've realized that people eventually would like to understand from business point of view more on the balance sheet, where does profitability and sustainability sit? And it has to come in the profit and loss statement, primarily on the profit side rather than being on an asset or an investment. So eventually, the business would like all these words to be used in a way where they can take economic advantage of that. So we'll talk more on this part as we progress, but this is how I would look at sustainability. Mr. Chandekar, you are on mute, so you'll have to.
Thank you very much for your opening comments, Mr. Rajeev. I, for one, feel that sustainability is something. See, we conduct businesses, and we want that our businesses should sustain. So, what gives threat to that sustaining ability? We have to tackle that. And
Right.
when we tackle that, that is we increase the sustainability. Now these threats can be from anywhere. The threats can be from finance sector. Suppose we are goofed up the finances, the business will cease to exist. So finance managing finances is also increasing the sustainability. I for one feel. please correct me if I am wrong. If our raw material sourcing is not secured, that will again also pose threat to our business. So securing raw materials on a sustainable basis is also increasing the sustainability. Developing a stable market is also increasing the sustainability of the business. Or even for that matter, having a good developing a good workforce, stable, who can be with us for on a long term basis, is also increasing the sustainability of the business. It is not only reducing the carbon emissions, or it is not only giving something for the new generation. Keeping our business intact and keeping our business floating is also sustainability, no? I mean, you people can comment. I mean, this is one.
Let me add one point here, and then
Yeah,
I'll.
please, Mr. Rajeev.
Yeah. So the first thing is when we talk about sustainability, even in our lifestyle, we
Yeah.
say a sustainable living, which means a basic where we can live it for long. It should not
Yes.
be
Yes.
something exorbitant. It should be
Yes.
minimalistic, which can last for long.
Yes.
Now, when I take lectures or when I talk on risk, especially for any kind of business, steel or forging or any of these areas, so
Hmm.
I have a few very basic questions. I would like to put this, and then we can, work and dwell on that part. So the questions could be for the companies. I ask certain questions, let them think, reflect on that. And if the answers to any of these questions lies in yes, that means this sector becomes very important and you need to understand a little deeper into this. So the first set of questions that I ask is, as a business, have you ever been asked by your customer or government to declare your energy, social, policy, compliance reported things? Have you been, have you listed your company, and is there SEBI regulation which tells you to report BRSR or any kind of reporting? Do you export your products?
Mhm.
Do you work with large conglomerates? Do you, as a business, plan to grow beyond the current status of 8 to 10% and looking at 15, 20 or higher level of growth? Does your company has a plan for expanding globally? Are you planning to build a brand which can stand the test of time? If any of these questions, and if you are able to say yes to any of these, then you need to be careful about things which are happening. We are right now standing at a strategic inflection point, uh, which is called "Only the Paranoids Survive" in the book by the Intel's founder, Andrew. He says that whenever there is major change happening, so if you look at the last 10 years or 15 years, the graph, everything was happening slow, everybody was growing. But then you reach a point where you see that macroeconomic changes are happening, world forums are changing, you can see major changes happening. Businesses are looking at massive level of growth or downfall. So it could be existing or it could be getting extinct. So at this point, this juncture is called the strategic inflection point. And I would say most of the industries, not only steel, they are right now glaring at this strategic inflection point. And the journey from here in next 1 to 2 years would either go up or go down. So as a business, you need to understand. As I said, there are a couple of questions I asked, and all of these are linked with risks and opportunities. When a problem comes, even like a COVID came, it was a challenge and all of us were struggling to survive. We didn't know whether we are going to see the light of the day. At the same time, there were business which harnessed on this. So the same situation, a macro situation, a calamity happened to the entire world. But most of the people were struggling to see and fight for the next day, whereas the opportunists, they took this as an opportunity. You see the Paytm, the Phone Pay, and you see how the Blinkits and Quick Commerce and Amazons, and so they went from the path to a different level. They shifted their base to a completely new base. So these are some of the thoughts that I would like to put. and then, of course, Dr. Pankaj and Mr. Ramani can add their views. So this is how I would like to start the conversation.
Yeah, very rightly said. I also think that there can be a threat from the technology side also. I will give you an example. You can, you yourself know there were pagers at one point of time. There were pagers, but the technology
Right.
changed, and the mobile phone came, and the pagers became extinct. There were VCRs, but the technology changed, and the VCRs became extinct. So there can be a threat from technology also. So, and that will affect your sustainability of the business. So the basic question which we have to ask is whether your business model is sustainable. How sustainable is your business model?
Right.
That is very important. What do you think, Mr. Ramani?
Yeah, actually, you see, while the narrative that you're going through right now is generally applicable, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Bulk of it comes essentially as a uh, survival requirement rather than
Yes.
sustainable requirement. The steel industry is somewhat on a different platform, which I think we need to understand. And that is, if you take, for example, steel, steel will continue to be the affordable fabricated material in the globe. You see, even the most developed countries, if you see, over the last, say, 100 years, they have developed. America was producing 150 million tons of steel 50 years ago. But even now, their own production as well as consumption is around 75 to 80 million tons per year because there are replacement requirements, there are new requirements, and there are new buildings and new requirements coming in.
Mhm.
So, from the point of view of time frame, when we talk, the short-term time frames which are applicable to smaller installations or industries or business opportunities, they don't apply to the steel at all. Steel is a long-term business, and people who are in steel remain in steel because they have invested huge amounts of money.
So just a correction, sir. Just
Yes,
one correction.
yes.
Steel does not mean only big steel plants.
No,
Steel
I am
means
not
small
talking of
rolling
that.
mills also.
Yeah,
Steel
I'm
means
not
small
talking of
forging
that.
shops
Yeah,
also.
yeah, I'm
Steel
not talking.
means small bright bar shops also. So
Agreed.
steel does not mean only big steel plants.
Agreed. But what is happening there is, if you take our own country's changeover, which is happening over the last 5, 7, 10 years because of the economic model that is being adopted,
Hmm.
even the application areas, which were essentially small scale SMEs, is also shifting because everyone is talking in terms of scale, in terms of being able to attract investments from outside and be able to present himself as a sort of a global kind of a capacity player. So that is a business environment. I'm not talking of that. I'm talking of steel as a material will
Hmm.
continue to remain for at least centuries to come, if not
Definitely.
long. So
Definitely.
from that point of view, we should be looking at steel from that perspective. And in that, the important part which comes into steel is resource conservation. Because, yes. So in this, what is the saving grace as far as steel is concerned? Steel, besides being one of the most important useful materials, it has also got the unique ability to be recycled endlessly without losing its properties. So to that extent, scrap plays a very, very important role in terms of ensuring that the
Hmm.
production cycle can be kept going by recycling. Now, the advantage of recycling is the emissions that we are talking about using scrap as the base raw material is 25 to 30% of the emissions that we are getting out of whether the blast furnace or any other
Hmm.
processes that we are using, or for that matter, and we don't require coal here for our reduction. So that is one side of it. And the other part is, you see, globally, what is the projection? The projection on the scrap is that by 2050, can the world see close to 50% of its production coming from the scrap? So once it happens, then what happens? You are only using 50% of the remaining production through resources of consumable nature, like iron ore or coal or
Yeah.
whatever else you are doing. So that is one side. The other part is From a technological perspective, steel industry technology does not change overnight because there are huge amounts of research and development, converting it into a commercial opportunity and scaling. Today, for example, if you see steel plant scales, they are all in terms of 10 million tons, 15 million tons, 20 million tons. So, in terms of units, in terms of equipment, in terms of all other infrastructure, it has got to match this kind of a massive requirement. So, it doesn't happen overnight. So, blast furnaces have survived in spite of the fact that they were supposed to have been dead 50 years ago. They are continuing because there is no viable alternative to the blast furnace even today.
I know. I
So
know.
that is why the world is in fact trying its best to reduce the role of the blast furnace.
I agree. Sir, when we were in the college, engineering college, studying metallurgy, we used to think that as long as iron carbon diagram does not change, the metallurgy will not change and the steel industry will not change.
Yeah.
But it is not so. I
Yeah.
will tell you one interesting thing. Now that the electric vehicles are coming,
Correct.
the steel parts which are required in the vehicle have reduced from 150 to 50. So to that extent, the sustainability of the steel plant or the specialty steel plant in particular, Mr. Pankaj will appreciate my point, is has come to has come in the doubt. How whether their demand will decrease, whether they will have to produce less, what is it? Because the electric vehicle, the change of technology has hampered the steel industry. It will hamper the steel industry in a way. Mr. Pankaj, your views on this?
I would like to give a different perspective to your first question, which you said. You asked about, uh, is your business sustainable? That is
Yes.
what all of us think.
Is your
Okay.
business model
And
sustainable?
is your business model successful?
Yes.
And let me also tell you one more another dimension. Since I am a Jain, so thoda main us angle se I will just try to explain.
Please.
See, any business has to, as Rajiv also told, has to see very clearly the profit and loss statement, and as whether how long am I going to make money. So we have to start with some basic questions. Basic questions can be, as Rajiv also asked, is sustainability something just to be discussed or just in my company, or something has to be done? Or if I put my question in a different manner, is sustainability going to impact the bottom line? If not today, whether it is going to impact tomorrow? That should be the question which every businessman should be asking. And how long and when? Or if I go deeper, if CBAM has been implemented or it is going to be implemented in Europe, the complete EU from 2026, do you think that it'll be only limited to Europe, or do you think it can also come to other places, even if you're not exporting? The people who are into exporting, it is going to impact them immediately. And I will tell you some mathematics behind it. As with whatever limited, and during my study, which I studied during the course, during the doctorate, carbon, 1 ton of carbon, the cost which we will have to either pay, or we'll have to kind of, take a certificate, whatever manner you say, is approximately 90 to 100 euros per ton. Now, as it's already been discussed by other panel members, the Indian steel mills are at, let's say, 2.5 metric ton of CO2 production per metric ton of steel production. That means if I convert into mathematics, 2.5 or 2.4, whatever that number is, into 90 euro per metric ton is going to be the impact. And let's compare it with the other guys, like electric arc furnace guys. Electric arc furnace guys are, if I'm not mistaken, they are at the level of around 0.4, 0.5, or 0.3, again, depending on what efficiency parameters at which they are operating. So there is a inherent, disadvantage which the blast furnace guys are going to have. They will be impacted. Today, if I know the costings of both the electric arc furnace and the blast furnace industry, today, definitely, the same steel, if you make by blast furnace, it is roughly cheaper by, let's say, $100 or something like that. Approximately, it all depends on iron ore prices, coke prices, and all. But what I'm only trying to say is that the first inherent disadvantage of a blast furnace guy, if that company is exporting to Europe, against the world average of 1.8, you are at 2.5. So zero point 0.7 into 90 or 100 euro is the immediate impact over and above somebody who is making supplying steel from blast furnace route from countries like Japan or Korea or other countries. And against that, an electric arc furnace guy is going to be 2 ton, roughly 2 ton. That is 2 tons. We have to actually, it's very important to understand the maths. 2 ton is roughly around, if I take 90 rupees, 90 per euro, it's approximately 18,000 rupees. Will I be able to sustain in that kind of a situation? And there is a problem with which all of us live. We feel that, if something is going to happen, we feel today it has come to Europe, it is not going to come to India. Life is not like that. Sooner or later, the whole world is going to,
Yeah.
because it is sustainability is no longer a fad or no longer a topic to be discussed. It is a reality which we all have to face. And we all should have the courage to convert it into our future balance sheets. And then put it in the balance sheet where I am standing. And then your eyes will itself open, or you will try to understand, yes, I need to do it, and it is an emergency situation today. I ask you a basic question. I think 2023, this CBAM has started. How many companies have still, started doing this scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 and all, preparing for the reporting? I'm not telling about whether the reporting, the numbers are going to be high or low. That is a different thing. How many companies have really started in a big manner? I am dealing with so many companies. I think roughly 500 companies I'm dealing with. Honestly, they do understand that there is going to be CBAM. They do understand that there is going to be some implications, but possibly some kind of hand holding is required for them. Otherwise, it is not just a question of balance sheet. The business itself, the whole business can be at stake.
Yeah.
That is the reality. It can be like a tsunami or a corona, which can completely wipe out your business. So the point which I'm only trying to say is that we have to understand the mathematics. We have to have the courage to see that if today, like if today something is going, some flood is happening in that part, tomorrow it can happen in my home, in my area
Yeah. Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
We always live in a world where we feel no, it is not going to happen. So let's continue living like this. Life is not like that. Once, if something is happening in some other place, it can happen to us also today. Sustainability or all the carbon and I will tell you one more thing. The regulations, the compliances, the government restrictions are going to become stricter by the day.
Correct.
They will. It's not a choice. It's no more a choice. It will become a kind of a enforcement which is good. Today, EU has done. Tomorrow, maybe Japan and other people, some more developed countries will do, and gradually we will not be able to kind of shy away from it. There is no not going. So the best time is to prepare now. Already it is late, honestly. The best time is to prepare now. Sit with the numbers, whichever industry you are there. So you have to see today. You One should feel we are already in 2026. We are already in 2030. So what are my actions which I need to take today? I think there we need to drive, and we cannot keep that if there's a writing on the wall, but we are shying away that no, 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 it's not going to happen to me. My business will sustain. Maybe the other people will kind of be killed or whatever. No, no, no. You will also be killed. That's the whole. And it is. I make it very clear again. It is no more a choice.
I
It
understand.
it it has to be done and understood by everyone. Yeah.
Just to add
I understand. It is
your
very,
point,
very essential and very important point you have stated. Yeah, Mr.
Hmm.
Rajiv, you were saying something?
so I'm saying just to add to some of the numbers so that people are aware on the CBAM thing. The
Mm-hmm.
cost of import in EU, especially for India, could be as high as 32%, which is going to be impacted once the CBAM comes in place because of the norms. And just to give a number so that all steel exporters, which could be a direct steel product, or it could be any byproduct or a value-added product. So the impact could be in the range of, if you're exporting 1,000 tons, it can have an impact of around 1 crore rupees as a tax. As Pankaj was saying, that there
Carbon
will
tax.
be EU tax, the CBAM, which could be 90 to 100 euros per ton of carbon emission, multiplying it with the difference, an expected difference, which could vary. But if the EU sets a norm of 1.7 or 1.8, whereas Indian steel would be in the range of 1.8 to 1.9, there could be a difference of 1 ton. Now, the CBAM could be applicable for every country or every export, but the difference of Indian steel, 1,000 ton would result in 1 crore. So if you're exporting 10,000, you can simply calculate. The number is a little different, but I have given a very simplistic number so that you can calculate what could be the tax impact that can happen.
I know, yeah, that will be, but I understand Indian government has put an objection to this CBAM and it is under,
So India, China, Poland, couple of
yeah.
countries have put their resistance. What happens is, I mean, as a business, while you are doing your business, government is fighting and trying to help you. Not help you, I mean, they're trying to put their point of view. At the same time, business is continuing. There are others competition waiting for you to fail. So it's important that you are fully prepared. It's like you're going to an exam and you know that question number 6 will be out of syllabus, but you don't know whether it will happen or not. And you say, I will not read this chapter and I'll go with that. So it's better to be prepared because if it strikes, the cost will be almost impossible for the manufacturers to exist, while others will definitely take advantage. So German steel, Australian steel will have a major benefit over here.
You see, let me clarify here.
Yeah, please, Mr. Ramani.
The assumption that Europe is clean 100% may not be correct. Blast furnace will continue to be in Europe in places where they have. For example, Thyssen, when you take, Thyssen is one of the largest producers of steel in Europe. Thyssen has 4 blast furnaces and their production is in the range of about 20-25 million tons. They are also trying all their best to get hydrogen and everything into this. And yet they would be operating at least 2 of their blast furnaces for the next 25, 30, 40 years. The problem is when it comes to steel and you're talking of green steel will cost at least 60 to 70% in terms of cost compared to the current cost of production because of the fact that you need hydrogen, which is made from renewable energy. And the cost of hydrogen itself, when it comes through electrolyzers, it is an unaffordable $7 to $8 per kg. Whereas in the Indian context, when you're talking, if you're bringing in hydrogen, it is possible that you can have coal gasification, which gives rise to the emission and yet enables you to get hydrogen at less than $2 per kg. So the question, as far as the steel industry in India is concerned, is post-carbon management. It is not going to be that steel industry can live without coal. It is very, very unlikely. Same as the question with power. About 1 billion tons of coal that we are mining, over 70% of the coal is going for power generation. Whatever you talk about renewable energy and alternatives, you think that you will be able to replace this kind of gigawatt capacities overnight? It will take maybe 50 years or 40 years. So what we need to do is, because you see the cost of production using any of these things which are developing today, they are going to be enormously unaffordable. So what you will have to do is to have a sort of a graded approach to this entire problem. Some of the easier solutions, for example, what is IEA, International Energy Association? You see, energy is the biggest source of emission. So IEA is at the forefront in terms of getting to net zero, which the world is talking. Now, in net zero, when it comes to, as far as steel industry in India is concerned, if we reduce our energy consumption, we have scope for reducing emissions by almost 30%. Similarly, when Dr. Jain talked about lifestyle, which is a very important factor, and as Mr. Rajeev was also saying, in terms of resource conservation, demand moderation cannot be avoided. Demand moderation has to come in. For example, in India, we never had dresses thrown out just to go and get a new dress in. We had dresses which went down generations, if in many cases. So the point here is demand moderation will come from one, the steel industry itself will provide better materials, in which case the amount of input that is required for a particular item can come down. The second is the life cycle. So that today, for example, you have bridges which are more than 100 years old and yet they are stable all over the world, including in India. Our bridge, for example, has completed more than 70 years. So the point here is if you factor the life cycle into it, then the norms by which these demands are projected will need to be looked at more realistically. So there is a scope for reduction of 10 to 15% of the projected demand through demand moderation, better materials, and we are talking of circular economy. Now, when it comes to circular economy, in the Indian case, we need to understand Indian culture as well as the lifestyle does not force scrapping so easily. So as a result, our scrap generation is very small compared to America. So America, for example, produces 75 million tons of steel, out of which more than 80% is produced through scrap.
Yeah.
Whereas in our case, it's only 20% which can be produced, or 15%. Right now, it's only 15% which can be produced from scrap. So scrap is going to play a major role, but there are issues also related to scrap. In a vast country like this, where it was more like a cottage industry, scrap collection, aggregation, its processing, its separation requires money. So today Tata Steel has put up a plant like for scrap management in Haryana. Similarly, this other people have also put 2, 3 scrap plants are coming up, which have capacities to do the shredding of the scrap and then do the grading and then make it usable as a raw material for steel. So steel industry will have to look at, say, for example, if we are right now on an average of 2.2, 2.3 kilograms of CO2 per kg of steel, then how do we come to say 0.5 or zero 0.6 over the next 20, 25 years? And it is possible through various things. One is through energy conservation. The other is through circular economy. Third is through demand moderation. And fourth is through affirmative action on post-carbon management. For example, carbon need not be discharged. The emissions can be converted to useful materials. Today, for example, people are doing conversion to ethanol. They are doing conversion to other products. Tata Steel is in fact working on a thing in which they are getting to it like carbon graphite. So that is something which is again a monumental problem. But you see, while we are discussing all this, the fundamental point which we need to understand is the world having talked so much about hydrogen as a solution is today completely stymied because the kind of resources which are required for introduction of all these high sounding objectives is not there, it's just not there. And of the announced hydrogen projects, less than 15% are actually seeing financial closure. It's only 98 million tons of hydrogen produced annually. Whereas steel industry, if you take 1 million ton steel plant, it requires more than 70 to 80,000 tons of hydrogen. So it's not as if the solutions are there and it will be possible. It has to be over a period, scaling, costs. India has an advantage that in terms of hydrogen costs, if you use coal, the hydrogen cost can be brought down. Because in spite of the best efforts, the electrolyzers, which are supposed to have been sort of far more expensive than what it was, they haven't come down in pricing at all. Last year, only less than 30% of the projects on hydrogen have got approval because the capital costs are not valid. And because the projects are getting delayed, the capital costs are going up. So these are actual realities when you come down to the actual implementation. So it's a sort of a very involved problem. It's not just a thing. So you need to divide it into 2 segments. One is a segment which is essential for your country's own requirements, its existence, and its economic growth. The other is outside requirements. And see how best you will meet the stipulations which are there, which are likely to be a penalty on you. Because you see, steel cost goes up 40% through use of hydrogen. That is how it's very difficult to make a transformation overnight. Otherwise, today technology is available. For example, DRI with 90% hydrogen in the syngas is a reality. But the scale in which hydrogen is made is some 100 tons, 200 tons, 500 tons. We require close to 30 to 40 million tons of hydrogen capacity for steel industry alone. So that is the So we'll need to take a lot of agencies are involved in it. The government has to come in a very big way. And there is so little resource available globally that nobody is wanting to risk such big amounts onto this. Now there is an increasing realization that all these projections in terms of, scaling will bring down electrolyzer costs to less than $100 and all that is all only a pipe dream. So India cannot go on the basis of these narratives. India has to have its own narrative. And as Doctor was saying, there's definitely a need to bring awareness on sustainability and commit ourselves to that. It's not a sort of a option. It's basically a mandate. So from that point of view, everyone, if he makes a concerted efforts, whether it is the producers, whether it is the users, whether it is the government, whether it is the other agencies which are coming in the picture, whether they're designers, our own institutions, for example, Indian standards institutions need to look at the entire thing and evolve standards in keeping with today's reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I add something here, Chandekar sir?
Yeah, just a minute.
Yeah.
Please go ahead, Mr. Pankaj, Dr.
I really appreciate Ramani sir what you said, but I think that the problem or the challenge is something like this. On one hand, if we do not act immediately, then there is a huge cost towards reconstruction of the cities which gets damaged. So many other social issues are there. So many other issues. If we translate it into the economics of the damages which it is doing, it is among us. So on definitely there is a huge cost of changing the technology, and it is very easy to be said. It is very difficult to be done. I do understand that part, but somewhere we have to make a beginning, and we have to weigh between both the things, because otherwise also the damages can be unimaginable.
Agree.
Here at least we are talking of 40% done, so there it can be, I don't know, 400% or 500%. We do not know about that part. It's an unknown thing. So I think and government, in my view, should have a carrot and stick kind of a policy where they give some stick also to it, and then there is a carrot in terms of incentives or whatever. So balancing between the both, government should be doing it, and everybody, as you said, everybody has to do their side. But it is something which we cannot escape through. This is something like that, and it is an emergency, whether we like it or we don't like it. So that's why. Chandekar sir.
Yeah, Mr. Rajeev, you want to make some comment on this?
Yeah, so we cannot walk like an ostrich with the head in the sand, imagining things to happen on its own. And when you take out your head, everything has cleared. So the danger and things are there. What my view is that we have to convert the whole thing into some kind of economic advantage for everybody who's adopting. So it should not be a liability for organizations. It should be built in a way where your cost of operation goes down. The moment you put a renewable energy in your plant, your energy consumption or the cost of energy goes down drastically. The moment you work on water recycling, specifically for the steel plant, you can save a lot on the water part also. When you talk about, so there is another principle called Hawthorne's principle. That is, if you measure something, you improve on that part. So it's a very simple metric. What we do is, even if we simply measure your diet or your weight, you are likely to understand and trying to reduce on that. So there should be a mechanism of, first of all, baselining for each company. That is what government has started with the BRSR reporting. It should be more widely spread so that every organization needs to declare their total. It's not only energy, it should be social and governance parameters as well. Once you have declared, so even if it is 70-80% right, and if you are given that stick, then what happens is you automatically start, you don't have to do anything. The moment you measure, you start improving at least 10 to 15% as per the Hawthorne's principle, which is a very simple mechanism of just measurement. So my point of view is that every company should know where they stand. And based on that, the baseline has to be done. It should be done by a mechanism which is uh, a very concrete, digitalized, so that you can play with that numbers and things. And similarly, based on that, you can look at reduction in other parts. But the first part starts with understanding where you stand.
Let me see this
Thank
for
you,
the
thank you.
steel
Just a
industry.
minute. I just want to make a point. Oh, yeah, Mr. Ramani, you were saying something?
Yeah, let me say this for steel industry as far as measuring is concerned. You see, close
Hmm.
to 75% of the production coming from the bigger plants. They
Hmm.
are equipped with instrumentation and measurement and data analysis, the best that is possible in the world today. So from the point of view of knowing where you stand, how you stand, where you do, there are no issues at all. And as far as reporting is concerned, you look at their annual sheets. Today, actually, there is more than 30 to 40% of that annual reports contain only technical data and performance analysis of the steel plants. So there is no issues related to the knowledge, related to the commitment. They are reporting everything, including pollution. CSR, what they are doing in order to mitigate pollution in the secondary
See,
side, for
these are
example.
all done in isolation. So it's
Not isolation. Government policies evolved on this basis. Because, for example, if you see the Government of India's steel projections which they have given, National Steel Plan, is
right.
28 steel producers were part of that committee. And on that basis, so as far as communication between the government and the steel industry and understanding the requirement, I don't think there is a gap. It may be on the smaller producers, there could be. But the major portion is a very well organized thing. They also have an association called the Indian Steel Association, which does this. Indian Institute of Metals
Yeah.
produces data on this. So there is no issue of somebody having to hold their hands and take it forward. They are also members of the World Steel Association.
Yeah.
Tata Steel, for example, SAIL, for example, they are committing themselves to the commitments which the world steel is making to the world at large. So it is not as if we are in a sort of a beginning stage or in an evolving stage. The question here is, as Dr. Jain was saying, resources which are available, can they be equitably shared such that the opportunity to reduce your impacts is there for everybody? And that is the fundamental point. And
Mhm.
now that the world itself is facing a shortage on resources, the
Hmm.
problem becomes even more acute.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Mhm.
there can be totally different dimension also to this issue. While we all agree that we should reduce the emission of carbon worldwide, it is a well-known fact that US is the biggest or the largest emitter of carbon in the world.
Correct. Even
Right.
today.
You mentioned that 85% of steel is made out of scrap. Still, US is the biggest emitter of carbon.
Correct.
And you also know that there was a dispute at Kyoto when we discussed about the carbon emission norms and what level should be fixed and all that. So there is a thought that why should these people teach us how these cities like New York and London were made? They were made cutting trees only, no?
Correct.
So when it is our turn to grow, they are putting spoke in our bicycle. This is also one thought which is prevalent. And this can also be seen as, this is also by some people seen as the spoke in the growth of economic growth of the country, economic growth of our country by the Western world. How do you respond to this?
No, basically, what Dr. Jain said is an uncompromisable requirement. We need to put that down as a mandate in the sense that as a nation, we need to remain committed to sustainability in the interest of our future generations and the country itself. So
Yeah.
we need to evolve a roadmap suited to ours. For example, even in the steel industry, in my book, I have brought out the
Hmm.
fact that getting away from this coal narrative, because India has coal reserves of huge nature. So we can't run away from coal. So keeping coal as our basis, gasification offers us an opportunity where it is possible that even by 2050 or 2060, the gross emissions from steel industry could probably be still maintained at the 300 to 400 million tons, which is there today. That is how my book, I've got 4 stages in which the carbon is reduced through technology, through demand moderation, through energy efficiency, and as Dr. Jain was saying, in terms of improvement within the plants. Surely, that's the first step, and it doesn't require outside help nor any approvals from anybody, and which already they are doing. For example, Tata Steel has started injecting hydrogen into one of the blast furnaces already. JSW is doing the same thing. JSPL is doing the same thing. In fact, JSPL has installed a coal gasification plant, the syngas from which is used for DRI production, which is actually the future because it already has almost 40% hydrogen in the syngas. It's possible to use syngas with 90% hydrogen to produce steel, and our emissions will go down to less than 20%. So everyone is sort of in their own way trying to take action. Arc furnace, for example, JSPL has installed 200-ton arc furnaces. JSW has got arc furnaces. Tata Steel now at Port Talbot they are doing. In Haryana they are installing a arc furnace plant where the scrap plant has been put. Tata's. They are installing an arc furnace plant so that they can convert the scrap there itself and sell it locally so that they don't have transport issues. So the industry is quite live to the problem. The issue is there are multiple involvements. So a multi-agency and a multi-pronged attack. This is what is fundamentally required.
Yeah, of course. And so we have discussed sustainability for long now, more than 70 minutes now. So unless now anybody wants to make any additional point, I think let's conclude.
Yeah, fine.
Some last statement from everybody, Mr. Rajeev, Mr. Pankaj, and Mr. Ramani.
Okay.
Last short comment.
Yeah, from my side, I will only say that, this is a problem, and we all should, rather than looking at other agencies, other people or government, we should do our bit and try to make the world a better place. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Rajeev?
I would say this is a strategic inflection point, and this is an opportunity, whereas risks. So let's explore how we can grow this, build this to a new path. At the same time, making sure that circularity is maintained so that circularity becomes a byproduct, whereas the economic activities grows and the business takes advantage of the whole thing.
Thank you, Mr. Rajeev and Mr. Ramani.
The steel industry to keep focus on sustainability as an uncompromisable objective and have committed levels of reduction in the emissions and technology changes to suit so that we don't discuss this beyond 2030 or 2040, the industry sustainability, that it becomes fully sustainable by then.
Thank you, Mr. Ramani, and thanks everybody, Dr. Pankaj Jain, Mr. Rajeev Sinha, and Mr. Ramani for your insightful contribution to this subject. And we really had very constructive and very thought-provoking discussion. I'm sure the industry will definitely take benefit of it. And thank you very much again for everybody, to everybody. And that's the end of this session. I would say that we really had very good discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you,
great day.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.